Hello and welcome to the future. I thought we'd start this video a little differently. It's now actually a couple weeks past the events that we'll be covering in this video. Was away for a week, got a little lazy with the filming. So anyways, we're gonna kind of do a recap in the beginning. Had an event, a friend was back in town from the Midwest and decided to do a brisket, 3 racks of ribs and some pork belly burnt ends on the Workhorse 1975 wagon setup. The whole thing started at 4 o'clock on Friday afternoon with the brisket and concluded at, let me turn the page here, at 4 o'clock in the afternoon the next day when we pulled the ribs. So it was a kind of a 24-hour cook, if you will, cook and hold. You kind of see me looking off to the side here. I actually have my notes in this nice little from Amazon. It's called a Pitmaster logbook. It's mistitled in this case, maybe just a logbook. Also interestingly, right now in the background, that's the Weber, and then that's the pit barrel. And the Weber presently doing a tri-tip as a brisket, and might do just a brief video on that after. But just to kind of take you through what we did, 4 p.m. Friday, put a 13-pound brisket on. The Workhorse set the pit to 250, basically kind of held the pit at 250 plus or minus. And it cooked till about midnight. So at about midnight, only 8 hours, which is quicker than I would have thought. It reached 203 and was perfectly tender. Let it rest for a couple hours. It came down to 150 internal temp on the brisket, at which point we then put the brisket in a toaster oven at 1 a.m. and the toaster oven was at 150 degrees. And we held it in the toaster oven for the next 15 hours. I was pretty nervous. I've never done a hold anywhere near that long, but I can tell you the videos that you've seen about how a long hold produces a better outcome are 100% correct. This stuff was perfectly tender, still nice and crispy from the foil boat and some of the measures we took intermittently during the cook to try to produce intentionally a nicer bark. We started cooking at Friday afternoon at 4. We served it Sunday afternoon at 5. So 25 hours, about half of which, a little more, more than half of which was a hold. But I would tell you, if you're thinking about doing a long hold, go for it. Go ahead, do it. Make sure you can keep the hold temp low enough. But the brisket was excellent. And as discussed later in the video, which is earlier in real time, it was just a choice grade from Costco because that's all they had. And it came out great. The ribs and the burnt ends were a little more kind of perfunctory. They went on the Workhorse the next day a little before noon, and they cooked until 4. So they had about a 4.5 hour cook. They came out great. A little bit less to say about those because cooking ribs is pretty straightforward. So hope you enjoy the video. It wasn't as thorough or as cohesive as I would have liked. Had some people stop in, during both days, during both cooks, which was great. No regrets about that, but that kind of interrupted some of the flow and some of the key points that I otherwise would have liked to show in the video. Little shout out to the Vermont Expos here. Old school Expos, not the current Expos. We're old school Expos fans around here. So hope you enjoy the video. I'm gonna get to putting it together now and hopefully post it soon. And then maybe we'll see how that tri-tips looks soon too. Thanks. Welcome to the channel. Today we're finally back cooking. It's been a long winter, a bit of a hibernation from the content standpoint. Apologize to all 3 of you who are probably missing out on the activities. This weekend we have a brisket, some ribs, and pork belly burnt ends are going to be firing up. We're also repping the old Formula One Monaco Grand Prix. The Grand Prix is up in Montreal this weekend, F1, and also happy Father's Day to everyone this weekend. So coming soon, we're going to start looking at the brisket and then eventually go out to the pit. Thanks. Now on to the brisket itself, and here are all the items we have out. In addition to something I did on Mother's Day, I just wanted to mention. Went to Costco. They only had choice briskets, so we're going with a choice brisket. The price at $3.89 wasn't terrible, even though it's choice. We have a big 13-pounder. They had a few of them, so I was able to kind of look through Some of them had the fat kind of all the way down here. This has a decent amount of exposed meat on both sides, at least relative to what the other options were. So that's why I picked this one. We're gonna go with a little Leroy and Lewis. Shout out to Chud. Dalmatian rub, just 16 mesh pepper, kosher salt. Gonna throw in, not equal parts, maybe half part Lowry's. Allow me to be the 9 millionth person to put Lowry's on my brisket this week. And I'm gonna be spritzing it, and I saw this on Ant's BBQ channel. I'll leave a link to him below. He does some pretty interesting stuff. To help color formation, I'm gonna be spritzing with a mix of this dark mushroom soy sauce and water. And you can see it here. Here's the actual soy sauce. The stuff is super viscous, very, very thick. So you need to dilute it. I'm actually gonna use it as a slather instead of mustard. I think mustard's too pasty, at least for me. So that's what's going into the cook. Got the thermal gun, have these wonderful disposable plastic cutting boards, which I love. Eliminates kind of some cleanup headaches. And this is some tallow I rendered on Mother's Day. I made some brisket burnt ends with a couple of points I had, and because we all know every mother loves brisket for Mother's Day. But this is the fat from that. I rendered it down from that cook. So just an example, when everyone says don't forget to use your leftover scraps for tallow or burgers or sausage, etc. Here's a very recent case where I did just that, and as you can see, I've kind of used it a few times. And we'll do the same thing with this trim. We'll turn it into something. I might actually smoke it when I smoke the brisket. So come back for a trim brisket shortly. Here are our 3 separate products ready to go in their various forms to meet their various fates. You have the brisket. Yeah, I'm not the best trimmer in the world. This is my first attempt at kind of an aerodynamic trim for an offset. And yes, I see the same thing you see, that is improvement needed. However, we'll get there. And we got here about 2.5 pounds of the fat that we're gonna, kind of that big hard stuff that's not gonna cook down. We're gonna throw on the smoker, make some smoked tallow. And there's the beef trimmings. Threw that in the food processor quickly. I'm gonna turn on the hamburgers for dinner tonight. There's enough fat in it too, we didn't need to add any from there. So there were the products, smoker, fridge for now, and burgers for dinner later. Outside now, everything is on the cooker. Just gonna give you a look at the firebox. Started with a chimney, the Chud's chimney of lump, and then threw some beech and maple on it. And as you can see, it's going pretty good. It hasn't cooled down yet. Theoretically, I should probably wait another 45 minutes, but I don't do well with waiting. And as example, I want to be running a little lower than it is right now. It's creeping up in the 280 range. I'm gonna, for the first couple hours, I'm gonna shoot for 250. I'm also gonna keep this damper closed to kind of give the smoke a little more time on the meat. And this thing is way too heavy to lift, so that's as much as I can lift with one arm in a bad pose. Brisket, tallow. See you in a few hours. 6 hours in, our brisket is looking beautiful. I had a little bit of pooling I kept dealing with here. Probably a result of, again, not a great trim job. So you can see we lost a little bit of bark here, but it was temping at about 170. It's nice and jiggly. It looks beautiful. Here is a little bit of the tallow that we smoked. So now we're gonna foil boat it and put it back on the smoker for, I don't know, a few hours until it gets around 200. It starts feeling nice and tender. Look at this liquid gold from the smoked tallow. Very excited how things are looking, and we'll be back in a few hours when we're done. It is now day 2 mid-morning, and our brisket, which we pulled at about 1:30 in the morning last night, or I guess 8 or so hours ago, is in the Breville air fryer convection oven at 150 where it's been. I'm telling you, it came out awesome. I wish I could give you a look at it, but unfortunately it needs to hold. We're not eating it till later on today, so hopefully it can withstand a long hold. Today's cook, the aforementioned 3 racks of Costco ribs. They were actually pretty good. Didn't need a lot of trim. Got a few chef treats here that we did trim off. For a rub, barbecue rub down base coat, pretty basic stuff, but it does provide kind of good foundation if you want to, like I do, with ribs, throw a little bit of flavor on top of it. This is Memphis in May, recent winter, Heath Riles. This is his peach rub. I love the combination of peach and the other flavors on ribs. Here are the pork belly burnt ends that we cut up and seasoned yesterday. Had them in the fridge overnight. Those got a hit of JP Barbecue Sweet Heat and just a little bit of honey sea salt. It's pretty aggressive salt-wise. I'm not sure how or why that is, but it is. So this is what's going on shortly. The chimney's fired up. We're about to get the Workhorse pit going. And in about, 5 hours or so, this should all be wrapped up. We're going to pack up and head over to the event. Just took the brisket out of the toaster oven where it was sitting at 150 for the last 12 hours. And we're temping, almost, look at that, perfect slicing temperature. Still feels nice and tender. Where's it going? Where'd our light go? There we go. So we're going to actually cut into it a little bit now, just to see what it looks like. Maybe take a piece of the flat off, cut into it, and then wrap it up and put the rest back in. Here are the first 3 slices off the end of the lean. And remember, this is a choice cut from Costco. So these are by definition going to be the driest possible pieces, but they look great, really good bark along the bottom. You can also see, because it's the driest, a little bit of the scraggly stuff on the bottom, but still pretty nice and juicy. Excited to see what the taste tester has to say. You probably won't be hearing from her soon though, because she's not going on camera. 3 hours in, the pit is rolling nicely at 250. Kind of have a rainy day here today. Ribs are looking good. They're staying moist. A little bit of spray every now and then. Starting to get a little pullback. They're temping in the mid 150 range, so they have another hour probably at least before we wrap them. Also put together some baked beans. Those are coming along well. And our burnt ends, they're interspersed just because I was running out of room with some of the spare cuts off the ribs. So 3 hours in, things are looking good, but another hour or so probably come back and start wrapping things up. So we're about 4 hours in, and we've just pulled both the pork belly burnt ends and the ribs in preparation for kind of their last hour of cooking. The burnt ends we've bathed in my homemade barbecue sauce, which is kind of a spicy vinegar. We've added some more of the initial spice rub, and then we topped it with brown sugar. So we're going to wrap that in foil and put it back on for an hour. And then each of the ribs is going to get an individual wrap with some butter, kind of a Kansas City barbecue sauce, and then again a little more spice. Those will go back on for about an hour. So hopefully next time you see us, we'll have pulled everything off and we'll be ready for service. See you then. Ribs are done. Ribs are off. We just cut up a bunch of them, and I want to give you kind of a look at the nice cross section. And if we could zoom in perhaps or get closer, the smoke ring on that is excellent. I can tell you firsthand, so isn't the taste. And we're just going to also do a quick reveal on the pork belly burnt ends. Some a little more burnt than others, but they're super hot and nice and juicy. And brisket will be up next. Thank you. So we just got the brisket out of the warming oven, and we've cut the lean, and I'm not going to lie, it looks pretty darn good. So we're going to take the lean slices. This was the exposed one, so don't mind the burnt look there, but the rest of them are just looking great, nice and juicy. We're going to put the lean in there. Now we're going to take our point, and let's see what we got here on the burnt end slice, how that's looking. Well, maybe a little burnt, if we're being honest. Let's go the next slice in, and that just looks juicy and great, and Yeah, for a choice brisket, not that bad. Thanks. I realized just now in hindsight, after trying to putting the video together and doing a little editing, that it just kind of ends. I didn't actually take anything at the party, the event, but we served about, I don't know, 15, 20 people. All the brisket went, all the beans went, all the burnt ends went, and 2.5 of the racks of the 3 racks of ribs went. Very good feedback, thanks to those who said some nice things. But I thought the previous video just kind of ends, so this is just a little bit closing. It went well, and next time I'll try to be better at, well, being a video person. So thanks.